are many kinds of weather, and no man knows them all. Sooner or later, the typical light plane pilot will encounter weather conditions beyond his skill. Some form of training becomes essential to safety. The University of Illinois Institute of Aviation, under a grant from AOPA Foundation, devised an emergency escape procedure. It is a simple, inexpensive, and practical procedure called the 180-degree turn. Institute research verified CAA findings that weather accidents can happen to any non-instrument trained pilot in any type of light airplane. With an amber windshield and blue goggles, the student becomes, in effect, a visual contact pilot on instruments for the first time. The first attempts at straight and level flight are always dramatically unsuccessful. This is demonstrated by the instructor's diagram of the student's flight, a typical graveyard spiral. By actual demonstration, all pilots tested proved they would not have survived their first experience under actual instrument conditions. This fact is a shock to nearly every pilot. The airplane enters a dangerous flight attitude within a very short time. One such condition is the graveyard spiral. The airplane turns. Vertigo affects the pilot. Nose cants down. Bank increases. Airspeed increases. Back pressure tightens spiral. Airspeed increases. Another condition, the roller coaster, consists of violent climbs and dives. The pilot desperately tries to make the instruments settle down. Because of his inability to interpret them correctly, each succeeding climb and dive becomes more violent until finally excessive G loads literally tear the plane apart. Regardless of previous contact flight experience, no pilot can fly instruments safely on the first attempt. Every pilot should have instrument training. Lacking this, the 180-degree procedure can enable the contact pilot to control his airplane long enough to fly back out of instrument weather. The procedure is this: hands-off controls, center needle; gear down, center needle; throttle back, center needle; trim to mark, center needle; throttle high RPM, center needle. The first step, hands off, eliminates over-controlling the elevator. It utilizes the airplane's inherent stability and allows it to seek the predetermined airspeed. The turn needle is centered by the rudder. Step 2, lower the landing gear. This added drag reduces the possibility of excessive speed. The needle must be kept centered. Step 3, reduce power. Power should be reduced to a position above idling. Center needle. Step 4, set trim tab to a marked position. This will give proper slow flight speed. Center needle. Step 5, adjust power and propeller pitch. Adjust to mark on manifold pressure gauge. Adjust to full high RPM. Center needle. The airplane will now hold a constant altitude. The steps should be completed smoothly and without pause. There will be oscillations, but they are reduced to a minimum when the intervals between the steps are short. These oscillations are normal. They are not dangerous. There will be no excessive speed, nor will the airplane stall. This procedure must be tailored to each airplane. Some airplanes require only 3 steps: hands off, adjust power, adjust trim. The predetermined airspeed will be near the recommended approach speed. The speed should be slow enough to reduce the possibility of excessive G loads, but not so slow that the roll of the plane cannot be readily controlled through the rudder. In this aircraft, it is 95 miles per hour. The 180-degree turn procedure involves the use of the compass. Learning to roll out with lead or lag and to interpret compass readings is important. The weather itself is an important consideration. Which way should he turn? A 180-degree turn to the left might keep him in bad weather for a very long time. It is natural in time of stress for a pilot to make a left turn. In this instance, knowing how he entered the cold front, he should turn 90 degrees to the right. It is up to the pilot to adapt the emergency technique to the particular situation. The described method of controlling an airplane rests largely upon one instrument, the turn indicator. It was chosen as being a reliable and comparatively inexpensive instrument. In using it, the pilot visualizes how much and in which direction the airplane is turning solely by the position of the turn needle. Here the airplane is in a steep turn to the right. Controlling the needle is an essential and continuing task throughout the procedure. The 180-degree procedure uses the 3/4 needle width turn rather than the standard rate turn. Acceleration is less likely in a shallower bank. The ball part of the instrument is disregarded in this procedure. The location of the turn needle is important. This view is straight on, but from the pilot's position, the centered needle appears right of center. Reading the turn indicator in rough air requires averaging. Averaging is the technique of keeping straight and level flight by letting the needle travel the same distance back and forth on each side of the center mark. The contact pilot relies primarily upon reference points outside the airplane for orientation. The instrument pilot must rely entirely on the instruments inside the airplane. There is no such thing as semi-instrument flying. Occasional glimpses of the ground are not enough to maintain successful contact flight. Hesitating, attempting to fly a little contact and a little instrument is extremely dangerous. A positive course of action is necessary. The pilot who finds himself in instrument conditions must be prepared to act immediately. First, get the airplane under control. Psychologically, the first step is the hardest. Hands off during the emergency procedure. Gear down, then center the needle. Throttle back, and center the needle. Trim to mark, again center the needle. Throttle set to predetermined mark, RPM high, center the needle. Practice develops a timing that materially reduces oscillations. Note heading. Disregard sensations of vertigo. Compass heading, 220 degrees. Vertigo produces false impressions. The airplane seems to be turning, whirling, or flying in a steep bank. Disregard these feelings and trust the turn indicator needle. Compass heading 210 degrees. Start a left 3/4 standard rate turn. This is the rudder turn. Come around to the desired heading. Concentrate on a constant rate turn. Keep the needle on the 3/4 position as nearly as possible. Roll out with 10-degree lead. Center the needle and let the compass settle down. Keep the hands off. Keep the needle centered until visual contact conditions appear. Don't chase the compass. Don't try to get its information too quickly. Never jump to conclusions when reading the compass. If the desired heading is missed by more than 30 degrees, corrections should be made. Take several readings from the compass. Keep the airplane flying straight with the feet, with the rudder action. Concentrate on this single control and keep a correct compass reading. In rough air, continue to take compass readings until the airplane's heading is definitely determined. If visual contact is not made within a reasonable time, a letdown should be started. Power is reduced to a predetermined amount to give 400 to 500 foot per minute descent. The 180-degree turn procedure is an escape procedure. It will not enable a visual contact pilot to fly through to a destination by instruments alone. It is simple, requiring a minimum of skill, yet it would be difficult enough in time of emergency without previous training and practice. A good part of its value lies in that it can become mechanical, a process that the pilot can follow and depend on, under conditions which otherwise would lead to panic or serious error in handling his aircraft. Bad weather should be recognized and avoided. If its true nature is not recognized until too late by the visual contact pilot, he is in serious trouble. The 180-degree turn procedure is one answer. The knowledge and ability may never be needed. Again, it may save the life of the visual contact pilot.